we have a really good friend of mine and a good friend of John's. Thomas Turner has been involved in Republican politics as long as I can remember. Now, I'm a little bit older than Thomas, so but recently elected as the chairman of the Young Republican Federation of Virginia. So,
wow.
As our party looks to how we can make sure that next generation embodies, the principles that have got us to where our country is today and our state is today, that we're able to do so and bringing that next generation into the party. And we have the person that's leading it all up. So I'm thrilled. Thomas, are you with us?
I am with you all. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. I am really excited to be on the John Fredericks Show. I hope John Fredericks is enjoying his vacation this week, and just excited to just talk a little bit about the Young Republican Federation of Virginia and my vision for the upcoming next 2 years.
Wonderful. And we've been talking a little bit this morning. You have a challenge on your hand. So Kiara is amazing. She's a bright light bundle of energy at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Thank you.
But she said she's not quite conservative. And I said, well, maybe yet, because you're coming on the show. So you've got a little bit of a challenge. But tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are with regards to your term. You just got elected, last weekend as the chairman?
Yes, I got elected on last weekend as the chairman. Very excited. One of the biggest things I'm really proud of is that it's the first time that we had two minorities back-to-back running the Young Republican Federation of Virginia. Our past chairman was of Indian descent, and I'm an African-American male, and it's just really showing that the Republican Party of Virginia is a party for everyone. So that's just really exciting. And we also had over 400 young Republican leaders from across the country here for the spring meeting of the National Young Republican Federation as well. And so we had a lot of attention in Virginia on last weekend.
That's amazing. And what was the discussion like and about during that weekend with so many of the young leaders in our party together?
The biggest thing is that all eyes are on Virginia. Even though this is what we call an off-year election, we know that there's a lot at stake for the direction of our Commonwealth. There has been a lot of chaos and a lot of scandal coming from the Democratic side at the top, and while that's been happening, the Republicans have been passing tax cuts. We've been governing effectively, and the Virginian citizens will see that in the upcoming year.
Now, Thomas, one thing that kind of upsets all of us in the Republican Party, and you just addressed it a few minutes ago, is having people understand that we really are that big tent, that we really are for the party regardless of background. Perceptually, unfortunately, it's there's that sometimes the perception if you're young, you should be a Democrat. If you're not white, you should be a Democrat. If you're not wealthy, you should be a Democrat. If you're not a man, you should be a Democrat. I mean, it's that whole scenario of, it's the old white rich guy perception that people sometimes have of our party. But like you said, that's not it at all, whether it's the young Republicans or the, even as you get older, because obviously diversity moves up. What is it that our party needs to do to kind of change that image?
Glenn, the biggest thing that needs to happen in the Republican Party, specifically in Virginia, is we can no longer be afraid to go places where we feel we might not be welcomed. I think a lot of times that we are so afraid to go outside of our comfort zones and just stick to our base, but our demographics have shifted in the past decade. When I go to the barbershop, I'm talking about the Republican Party. I'm talking about kitchen table issues. But I'm also taking the feedback of the perceptions that they have on us, because that's the only way that we can learn is if we start listening to other people who may not agree with us at the moment. But at the end of the day, I've always been able to find that common ground, whether it be on taxes, whether it be on race issues, whether it be on, just any everyday issues. At the end of the day, everyone is wanting the same thing, and that is to build the American dream.
And you hit it on the head, I think, when you mentioned, you talked about kitchen table issues. I've given a lot of speeches. I think you've talked about a lot of it. If we keep talking about liberty and freedom everywhere we go, or we have people in the party talking about liberty and freedom, we lose people. I mean, people are concerned about, can they pay their bills? Can their child afford college? Will they come back after college and have a job there? that's the type of stuff that people are concerned about. But sometimes what only gets noticed from our party is people wanting to go out there and talk about this whole liberty and freedom scenario, which, I mean, we all may care about, but I would imagine if you go out there and ask, anyone on the street today, how many of you talked about liberty and freedom around the kitchen table in the last month? No one raises their hand, but I wanted to bet they all talked about the economy.
Oh, exactly. And I just, like I was saying earlier, like I have this discourse with a ton of my family members and other friends who are on the Democratic side, and we literally do all we talk about is taxes. We talk about, how we're going to pay the bills. I talk about how I'm going to pay back my student loans. I live in Suffolk, Virginia, and one of the things I always have been worried about is all my friends who are moving away to other places because the job opportunities are not there. And now I'm blessed to have a young Republican in the Suffolk area, Delegate Emily Brewer, your good colleague, Glenn,
yep,
who's fighting to help bring jobs back into this region. But it's those types of issues that I'm always talking about. If I go around just saying liberty and freedom, while that's important, do not get me wrong, it doesn't always resonate to your everyday voter.
Right. So go ahead, Thomas. Sorry.
And also, it also gives a misconception that we're talking about almost that it's archaic. And I don't mean to say that in the sense of that we shouldn't be focusing on that, but it's just a lot of times we tend to use buzzwords too much instead of solutions.
And I think that's it on the head, right? We all value liberty and freedom, and it's important, but what we get it wrong, and I say we, I think some in our party get it wrong, is a good, solid education, a good job, a great economy for entrepreneurship to flourish, creates opportunities for people to exercise freedom and liberties, right? But we get it wrong where we talk about freedoms and liberties and we never bring it back down to the issues that really are those kitchen table topics. So I think it has to be bottom up, not top down.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. And one of the things that I'll be instilling to my new board in the next couple of months is how do we start back doing that top-down approach, taking the moment, like I told on the campaign trail, that we have to be able to listen actively to the concerns of our communities and also be able to give a response that promotes the Republican Party to our generation.
So let's talk about your generation for a second. And, how specifically can we hit that generation? People talk about this is the generation of social media. This is the generation of 140 characters. How is it? What is the best way to get that message to this new generation of millennials?
I mean, social media is effective, but honestly, going to the events where millennials are, I know, for instance, a lot of millennials are not as socially conservative as their older generation. They are not as concerned about who you want to marry or, those type of issues. What they want to see us going into those type of communities and talking, again, going to the main thing is talking about opportunity. For me, just sticking the black community, that's all I talk about is opportunity. I use examples of our leaders, such as Senator Tim Scott, who talks about the issues that affect the black community. He's talked about race, for instance, on the Senate floor, but he's also passing bills on criminal justice reform with his colleagues on the other side of the aisle. So he's learning. They want to see us working together, but they also don't want us to be bogged down on so many things that I guess could, forgive me for a second, that would not seem inclusive, if that makes sense.
It does. So, obviously, big elections in Virginia. Like you said before, all eyes are on Virginia this year around the country. And you just walked in to chair the Young Republican Federation. So, what role do you see the YRs playing in elections this year in Virginia?
The biggest area, obviously, we'll be working with our counterparts in college Republicans and targeting some contested races. But the biggest thing is really growing our federation organization across the Commonwealth. And this will also be in preparation for 2020's elections as well, is having effective clubs in every part. There's areas that we'll be focusing in on Southside Virginia, in the 5th Congressional District area, where really hitting in and really starting to promote that to our young professional demographic. The second area is really just becoming a support group. a lot of my YRs are already leading their city committees, their unit chairman already. They're already serving on district level. They're already serving on our state central committee in their own right. But really, so we're going to be like a partnership to our party. A lot of times our party, they just see young Republicans and my colleagues in college Republicans as just door knockers. No, we're your tag team partners to help you guys advance a message to this whole Commonwealth. It's going to take a team effort, and it's just something that I'll be promoting both at the executive committee level and the state central committee over the next few months.
Sounds good. Well, Thomas, hold on just for a sec. We got to take a break, pay some bills for John, but we'll be back in a minute with Thomas Turner with the Young Republican Federation of Virginia. Thomas was with us, the new chairman of the Young Republican Federation of Virginia, and we were just chatting a little bit about how we can engage the youth as we go forward and make sure they are part of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Thomas, we talked about some things that we need to do and how we reach them, and we just talked about kind of the social media piece. What are some of the challenges out there? I mean, what are some of the things that our party has kind of gotten wrong or kind of misstepped with regards to the youth that we really have to be careful of going forward?
I think the biggest thing is that we tend to Alexandria Cortez. There's an assumption when I talk to a lot of older people, is that every young person believes what she's selling, and that's just absolutely false. Whether they be conservative or be more to the liberal side, most young people are not buying what she's selling. They find her to be a lot of hot air. Again, we're really concerned about mainly two things: a job that pays the bills, and we do care. I do notice more that we do care about making sure everyone's welcomed. The biggest thing when I go around and talk to young people, one of their biggest fears about the Republican Party is they feel like that their gay cousin may not be welcome there, and that's very concerning to me because those are issues that causes them to vote for the Democratic Party. I think that our party was founded to be inclusive. It was a coalition of slaves, abolitionists, and women, and we were always founded on bringing everyone together under the premise of limited government and fiscal responsibility, and just giving everyone an opportunity to achieve that American dream. And I really do believe if we start going into every single community in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's going to take time, but that investment is so worth it and the longevity of the conservative movement, not just here in the Commonwealth, but across the country.
No, I'm with you 100%. It's interesting you brought up AOC, and I was kind of curious about that as well. I mean, I admire AOC from a marketing perspective. Either her or whoever she has that handles her and making her a brand is doing a phenomenal job. If she wanted to go open a marketing company tomorrow, I would say that's going to be one of the hottest marketing companies out there. But when it comes to understanding policy and where this country should go, I mean, she's completely off a rocker.
Yes. She truly is. I'll use the prime example of the Amazon deal, which I just was doing some research on that last week. Her constituency was not against the Amazon deal that was in New York. So I feel like she's just kind of going rogue and not really engaging her district. She pulled an upset in the Democratic primary last year, unseating a guy who I believe was supposed to be in line to be the next speaker for the Democrats after Nancy Pelosi. But I really think that she's not really grasping her community. I think that she's just spouting off a few people are the loudest voices in the room. And that's always a risk in politics. And Glenn, we've talked about this for years, is that the loudest voices in the room are not always the ones that have the best solutions for the country or for, in our situation, the Commonwealth.
Agreed. So what you're telling me is we don't have to have our version of AOC. We don't have to have that social media elected personality. We just have to make sure that people understand how our policies relate to them around the kitchen table issues.
Oh, absolutely. I get very concerned. There's a lot of firebrands, and I know a lot of people talk about like Candace Owens or Tomi Lahren. And while I'm glad that they're speaking out and I'm glad that they're being a voice, we don't always need to be looking for a firebrand. We need to be looking for solutions. and authenticity. People want that instead of just a celebrity. When I go around and I knock doors, or when I'm literally at Starbucks talking to my friends who may be more liberal than me, they know I'm conservative, know I'm a diehard Republican, we don't talk about AOC or Candace Owens or Tomi Lahren. We're talking about taxes. We're talking about issues that face our local communities. Sometimes we're even talking about things that's happened in our lives that have brought us to our philosophy today. Like the millennial generation and the generations after us are more engaged and have a great understanding of what's going on. I can even say that I've talked to middle schools about some issues of the day, and they have been more engaged than some of the people who are older than you, Delegate Davis. So it's really amazing what the younger generations that are coming up are aware of. And I think that we as a political party need to not underestimate their knowledge and their intelligence and bring them in, mentor them, but listen to the fresh ideas they have.
That makes sense. Well, Thomas, I really appreciate the time. This has been Thomas Turner, the new chairman of the Young Republican Federation of Virginia. Thomas, thank you so much for your service to our party, and we will be back in just a few minutes after some news, some weather, and paying some of John's bills.